Hello, everyone and everywhere, whoever was or will be. I'm Redrunner, and I'm finally coming through on that Q&A I promised you all. I'm creaking a lot. Don't you love it? Happy New Year's, by the way. Originally, this was supposed to be a celebration of reaching 4,000 subscribers, but since then, I have to thank the additional 356 of you who've subscribed since that. So yeah, thank you a bunch. I hope to create more and more stuff next year. Maybe branch out even a little bit from Death Battle. Do some art, maybe some gaming, but generally just experiment. I want to make stuff. But just to jump right on into it with some of the most generic questions you could possibly have for something like this. Do you have any pets? Don't currently, but I had a dog named Sunny, cat named Shadow, and a hamster, or my sister had a hamster. I can't recall his name, and I would like her to yell at me if she's watching this over that. But yeah, a beagle, I don't know cat breeds, and he was yellow. Speaking of yellow, what are your favorite colors? Okay, but no, seriously, red, obviously. And my second favorite color is gold, not yellow, specifically gold, like a little bit more orangish, if you're just talking about hues. Third favorite color is pink, and yeah, I know, that's just light red, not that creative, but still. What are your favorite foods, sweet and savory? Yeah, if I'm being honest, I don't know if I have a specific favorite sweet food. My mom has been getting very good at making turnovers, though. Apple, blueberry, doesn't really make a difference, although I prefer apple. So I would say that for sweet. And just for like a savory meal, I suppose I prefer something with cheese. Chicken Devon, maybe eggplant parm. One of those two. Eggplant parm is such a hassle to make, though, so don't say I said that. What is your background and ethnicity? I am half Irish, half Cape Verdean. That is over here in Africa, if you weren't aware. So yeah, I'm actually mixed. I feel like most people who look at me might assume that I'm just white. No, I'm not. But on that note, I have lived in the United States all my life, so. Why did you decide, or ever did decide, if you want to have a YouTube channel? And why mostly Death Battle? YouTube channel? It was just a fun thing to do at the time. I started by doing gameplay, if you look back far enough in my video library, Roblox, Murder Mystery. It was just something I enjoyed playing that I wanted to record and share. As far as Death Battle, brutally honest answer, it worked. It was something that I was passionate about that people seemed to really grasp onto, much more than the gaming. That's kind of the reason I slipped away on the gaming front of things. I would like to get back into doing that sort of stuff. Hopefully I'm much more entertaining. I have grown a lot since those Roblox days. I had a coffee shop job and gotten more active and personable compared to back then. I think you can definitely tell that just from listening to me. What was your main inspiration for getting into doing YouTube stuff anyways? Rizgrastar, like literally just him. And I'm pretty sure I'll be playing the appropriate music to back that up as well. Ultimately, that was my goal for a long time, just to give off the same, just nice, wholesome energy he did. I feel like I might have drifted away from that a little bit, but that's ultimately my goal. Just to be a friendly presence, more or less. How do you get into the Versus community? Truthfully speaking, I don't know. Death Battle was my first Versus thing, but I either got into it based off a Rizgrastar reaction, or I just happened across an episode around the time of Terminator versus RoboCop. What got you into the Death Battle community? Same thing. How did you first find out about Death Battle, and were there any instances in the past where you felt like dropping the show? Well, I already answered the first finding out about Death Battle thing. As far as dropping the show, outright, no. There was a time where I thought of just not making videos for it anymore, though. I remember by that point there were a couple times where I would get into annoying copyright stuff. It's much more common now, but more reasonable now, too. So it's a double-edged sword, I suppose. Like, it's very rare for a video to get outright blocked nowadays, but the claims come through more often in general. How long do you think you'll be part of the Versus community? Frankly speaking, I'm not sure. I would like to be in it for a long, long time. Admittedly, I've been getting a little bit out of touch on the debate side of things because once Death Battle started accepting these really high scaling terminologies and getting a little bit more advanced, the debate side of things has not been nearly as interesting to me. I much prefer talking about the simple stuff rather than dimensional tiering and all that craziness. Even if I were to get out of the debate side of things, though, I would still really like the creativity and animation behind a lot of these things, though. So I think I'll be part of the community for a long time yet. What's your favorite thing about Versus debating? I mean, honestly, just analyzing the characters. Just figuring out how abilities interact more than anything. And this ties back into the other question. I used to like, actually calculating the characters for a while as well, but that's fallen off just because of how much different the scaling is nowadays than it was back 4 or 5 years ago. If there's one thing you could change about Death Battle as a whole, what would it be? I would get rid of the rule that they had written down for, like, years saying no outside help, because it has tainted the community to no end. For the record, that is not a rule anymore, and it has not been a rule for years. Now it says something along the lines of, no factors that are unrelated to the combatant can cause the victory, which is a lot different. Oh, here we go. Basic question, but what's the origin behind the character of Redrunner? How did you come up with your iconic running red dot design? What gave you the idea
What
for
the
your
hell is
character
that
design?
little Waddle Dee thing?
Where does the
that
name
is supposed to
Redrunner
represent
come from,
you?
and
What's
why?
its lore?
How many reds did a red
Please
dot
tell me
run
you're
if it
from
was
Redrunner.
more
You
red
name your
readily
channel
for
Redrunner.
running as a red runner? That didn't feel like it rhymed by the end. Okay, so, yeah, this is Redrunner. This is essentially my channel mascot. This is not technically supposed to represent me. I see this guy, this little gremlin. Little mischievous, little nomad kind of character. He just goes around doing superhero-ish things. It's a character that I've had for a long time. I think over a decade by this point. So yeah, just early on, I decided that he could be a good icon for my channel, and clearly it is recognizable enough that several of you asked what it was about. And as for one of you mentioning Dreamland, a lot of people think that Redrunner is based on Kirby. No, it was actually originally a Sonic OC. I'm much more of a Sonic guy than anything to do with Nintendo. Not that I dislike Kirby, but no, Kirby was not an influence. There's not too much lore behind Redrunner, other than the fact that he is a Zendron. That's what they're called! Woohoo! If anyone cares. And there are several of them, actually. I just don't post them very often. I've only really used them as server icons on the Death Battle Judgement Discord. But yeah, they're just characters that I've had for a long time, especially Redrunner, favorite color, so that makes sense. If you were curious, Redrunner doesn't even sound like me. He has a very high-pitched kitty gremlin voice as well. Picture that next time you see him running around. And we're not done with lore quite yet. My question, what's the backstory behind Jerry Judgement? And I don't mean the canon or whatever, as interesting as that may be. I mean the story of how you came up with him and the general process behind that stuff. So yeah, that's a server character. The only way a lot of you might know about him is from that animation I just posted, with pretty much no warning from your perspectives. Basically, on the Death Battle Judgement, we do these month events. There's actually one starting up right now if you were interested in getting in on it, but we debate one matchup per day for an entire month, and we try to see who should win the fights. It's a whole community thing, but for June in particular, the second ever time we did something like this, we decided to pull it all together, like have a central idea to the debate month, which was Jerry Judgement. Funny thing there, Jerry was such a whim of a character. The name was literally just because Jerry's June of Judgment. It was just a stupid thing where, yeah, Jay. As far as what he looks like, also a whim. I'm pretty sure Gumball Viking, just said something about a hazmat suit and how that would be kind of topical at the time we made him. And I thought to myself, that actually sounds kind of cool, let me draw that. And then I drew that, and then we kept that. So yes, Jerry Judgement is a whole ass COVID reference. All the lore stuff we came up with after the fact. He was originally just a design and a personality to tie the events together, and it seemed to work pretty well. And that goes into the next question. Are we going to see more of Jerry Judgement in the future, or is he strictly relegated to the Death Battle Judgement Discord from now on? I would love to bring Jerry to you guys. It's just a lot of the stuff is very context-heavy to the Discord. I've made entire animations centering around the month events and Jerry, the characters, that you guys just haven't gotten to see because I'm not exactly sure how to introduce it to you. I have an animation now that can do a decent job at that, but you'll need a little bit of a history lesson to understand every context going on. But yeah, eventually Jerry became one of, essentially, the 7 sins. Not literally like Full Metal Alchemist or Seven Deadly Sins anime. They just vaguely represent their sin. They are not literal embodiments of these sins. Although there might be a little something there. Anyway, I would love to come up with a way to introduce you to these characters because I put a lot of work into designing them and coming up with personalities and stories for them. It's just an issue of the when and the how. How did you get into art and evolve over time? I feel like I was always into art. Like, I don't think that was something that I ever got into. I was always drawing something. I liked drawing Sonic levels. Like, I drew a lot of level designs that were, like, really crappy that you could only really do in something like Little Big Planet, which I also drew levels for, specifically. As far as evolving, I just kept drawing, ultimately. It's one of the most lame pieces of advice ever, but I can't say I ever worked with classes to help me learn much. The only thing that ever did teach me was the vanishing point. But that's getting into art stuff that I don't think you guys want to hear about here. What's your favorite thing you've ever drawn? I do not know. A lot of stuff has sentimental value to me that I just think is okay, realistically. I drew a lot of stuff in the middle of class. I was one of those guys. And I actually have a drawing here that has no relevance to anything lore-wise, channel or server, but I drew this guy. Yeah, he's just a really creepy wolf. I dreamed about him at one point. Like, I drew him perfectly as I dreamed him, which is why his ears are in a weird place. I don't know why, but I'm kind of attached to this guy now. Like, I don't know what I could use him for. He chewed his own lips off. I'm a little bit messed up. Just what advice would you offer to anyone getting into art? Draw stuff that you're familiar with. I don't think anyone should force themselves into drawing realistic people and proportions if they don't think they're comfortable with that, or drawing hands. Frankly, simplifying those things is perfectly fine. If you're not comfortable doing it, just don't do it. But if you're purposefully trying to improve on those points, I feel like posing is much more important than accuracy. And you'll notice that if you look frame by frame at a lot of animations, that's the point of squash and stretch. That can't literally happen, but it feels right when you see it. What's the best tips you could give as an artist? Don't be afraid to do as many drafts as you need. If you don't think it's refined enough, just go again. One thing specifically that I can get disheartened by a lot when I do these sorts of things, your sketch layer can look like the most pretty thing ever, but then when you try to add those really thin lines in their place, it will look so much weaker from your perspective. And that's because when it's a sketch, you can just kind of picture where a line should be. But once you actually put that line there, you can scrutinize that line. I guess those two things were a little bit unrelated. But yeah, do your drafts, and once you go to line art, it's not necessarily that you drew it worse than the first time. Your brain just doesn't have any blanks to fill in. You can definitely get better at making those smooth lines, but that wasn't you messing your thing up. Just make sure to save every layer anyway. My question is, will you do art videos and add them to your channel? Love your work and want to learn. Thank you. And Yes, I've dabbled with that, specifically with Season 8. But yeah, I definitely could do some art videos. I don't really have much of an excuse for not doing them. It's just a little bit out of the norm for me. Speed drawing is fine enough. It's relatively simple to get out. I might even want to do art streams. The only issue is that a lot of the stuff I draw ends up having to be, secret. So, yeah. Maybe I should draw more things that are just transparent and open. Ooh. My question is, what software techniques you use to improve your art skills? I cannot say I have any particular techniques that I use to improve my skills. Currently, I use Photoshop for illustrations, like my thumbnails, and I use Adobe Animate for animation. After Effects if I'm feeling really spicy. But yeah, I've been trying to get more comfortable with rotating my canvases because I can't do strokes in a very particular direction. At least when I'm doing scratchy things, it has to be in this sort of arc. So if you ever pay attention to anything that I'm drawing or animating and notice that particular arc, that's why. Because this is the most comfortable angle of line that I can draw unless I rotate the canvas. Just an art question, what do you think is the best way to translate styles while still retaining your own when drawing? That comes down to line art. More than anything, I would say that comes down to the line art. What you guys see from my style typically comes down to how I border everything. Speedy, his Ami avatar, is mostly just the character. I just drew her with the same line art that I drew all of our avatars in, and you can notice that. The actual Ami doesn't quite look like that. I did put effort in to make her look as close to the show as I could, while still using the same line art that I used for everyone else. That's about it. I pretty much always go for that style. Try to make it look as close as reasonably possible. And the only thing that I never change is how I do the line art. I never change that to fit whatever style I'm trying to go for. Which makes it very difficult to do normal people. That's why I hate comic book characters so much, because they don't have an exact reference to what I'm trying to do, so they just end up looking like this. If you thought this looked weird, don't worry. I think it looks weird too. I just don't feel like drawing it again. Just wanted to say that when you first hit 1,000 subscribers, I was the one guy who unsubscribed, putting you back at 999. Just wanted to apologize. Sorry. Actually, for the record, I didn't even notice that happened, so you're good. What's your favorite reaction that you have done? I don't actually, assign a quality to them like that, so... Saitama vs. Popeye was a fun reaction to do. Hulk... The finales, in general, I enjoy those reactions. Probably Saitama vs. Popeye, though, for my favorite reaction. What's your favorite moment in one of your reaction videos? Okay, despite that answer, it might be surprising to hear this. It is not even any of the group reactions. My favorite, standout moment from any of my reactions is Bowser versus Ganon. The end of the episode, my reaction to seeing Ratchet and Clank show up as the next time. I was a little bit subdued since that was earlier in my channel, but... my god, I was hyped. You would not believe how hyped I was when I saw Ratchet and Clank show up on screen, because I knew exactly what would happen. And for the record, Ratchet and Clank vs. Jak and Daxter is my favorite matchup of all time. It is not my favorite episode of all time, and there are some production things that I take a little bit of issue with, but ultimately, good episode. And... yeah, no, that reaction right there.
Alright, let's use next, because I'm curious.
Next time on Death Battle.
Alright. Yes! Yes! Yes!
What do I call you?
Yes! I have been waiting for this for so long. You have no freaking clue. I know who it is. Don't try. Don't even try to hide it, guys. Ratchet and Clank versus Jak and Daxter.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite thing. What made you want to start content creation with your friends? I'm going to purposefully take this as a different question than the other ones. What made me want to do it with the guys? I don't know precisely. I don't remember. I think it was literally just a random suggestion. What if there were group reactions? It might have been because Miles vs. Static was not one that I cared that much about. And that's always an issue that I feel like I had in the past, where if it wasn't a matchup I particularly cared about, a lot of the times I would end up being just deadpan most of the time. I didn't have a face cam, but still. But yeah, Miles vs. Static was the first time I did reactions with other people. How did you, Gumball, Hyper, and Speedy become friends? That one is very straightforward. We're just all on the same Discord server. And it just so happens that we're all the owners of that Discord server. Gumball was the one who created the Death Battle Judgement Discord, originally the DBD, but they stole it. Then Speedy became co-owner, then Hyper got added into that, and then me. So anyone who thinks I own the server, nah, I'm the 4th owner. I was the last one to get added. Would you continue doing any Let's Play videos for video games? Maybe even with Hyper, Gumball, and Speedy? I don't know about with those guys. I mean, that obviously just depends on the game. But for the record, not all of us can play the same games. Lethal Company, for instance. You might have noticed Hyper's the only one joining me for that. That's because he's the only other person who can play it. Something like Fortnite, Fall Guys, we can play that easily. But it really depends on the game. As far as making Let's Plays in general, absolutely. I'm kind of interested in playing the System Shock remake. Favorite anime episode on Death Battle? Off the top of my head, no idea. All Might vs. Might Guy was pretty good. That's the first one I think of, so take that as you will. Well, versus Tatsumaki I really like, too. How did you and Gumball end up stuck in the Billcord fight? I don't know. Help. But nah, for the same reason as before, I'm going to say it was Redrunner, not me. Not the same person. How's life in Equestria after Discord saved it? I don't know, Gumball's the one in Equestria. I ended up in the Nightmare Realm somehow. Are you an Android or an Apple user? Android. I would never be an Apple user. Are you an Apple? Yes. If you could be anything, and by anything I mean literally anything, what would you be? An Apple. What is your favorite genre of music? Ooh, kind of a neat one. I like a lot of genres of music, but favorite? Probably electro swing, kind of like this. What do you think are the most overrated and underrated Death Battle episodes and or matchups? God, I'm here only to cause problems and make enemies. I think currently a lot of people are underrating Galactus vs. Unicron, if only just a bit, and overrated Raiden vs. Wolverine. It just is not nearly as great as a lot of people make it out to be, in my opinion. What was a Death Battle that you never expected to happen? Stitch vs. Rocket, honestly. Yeah, just that one. I mean, yeah, it got very popular in the community, but they just did it almost as soon as it did, which is bizarre to me. Who's a character that you like more because of Death Battle? There are quite a few. I get introduced to a lot of characters from Death Battle, but if I had to single out someone that I knew previously that I liked more because of Death Battle, probably Rick. Yeah, I like Rick more than I did before, so I think he would count. My question is, after the season is over, will you be ranking all the episodes in a video? Yes. Yeah, we will. Copyright might be a hassle. That's the only thing. Would you consider ranking past seasons that you, Hyper, Gumball, and Speedy haven't ranked yet? Absolutely. In fact, we even have rough drafts of rankings for other seasons. Typically, rewatches get done previous to any actual video planning. But yeah, we absolutely would consider it. We are considering it. Are you gonna finish that croissant? What croissant? I already finished it. What are your opinions on the Ratchet & Clank franchise? Or, I'm sorry, what are your options on the Ratchet & Clank franchise? I mean, honestly, the fact that you asked is kind of bizarre to me. I really, really like it. I like pretty much all the characters from that franchise. I think Angela's overrated. I think people give too much hate towards the plot twists of Ratchet being the last Lombax and Clank being the chosen one, essentially. I think it's fine. I understand why it could have taken the charm away for a lot of people of the original being just two plucky, random outcasts finding each other. But I think it added a decent bit of world building to everything. What's your favorite gaming franchise, and what would you... It's Ratchet & Clank. It's Ratchet & Clank. I would like to see General Grievous versus Dr. Nefarious as pretty much the only other Ratchet & Clank matchup that I care about that much. The main four are the only ones that I think are really deserving of a matchup, that being Ratchet, Clank, Quark, and Nefarious. Ratchet and Clank already got their matchup. Quark, I don't have one in particular that I care about. Nefarious, Dr. Nefarious versus General Grievous. And I realize that I need to clarify this to people. I didn't realize this would be a thing. I don't want Grievous to act like in the Genndy Tartakovsky film. If you want that from Grievous, then we do not want the same thing. If I viewed Grievous as that ruthless killing machine with basically no emotion beyond just kill, then yeah, you're right. No, Grievous vs. Nefarious would be bad. I'm going into it with the assumption he's going to be acting like his Clone Wars version, which is a goofy villain who is incredibly dangerous. But he's also a coward, and you can't take him too seriously a lot of the time. I like that, which might be weird to some people, but I'm ranting about something that isn't part of this. What are some of your favorite movies, and would you like any characters from those films to appear in Death Battle? I'm not that big of a movie guy, if I'm being honest. Indiana Jones, though, would be fun to have in a Death Battle, so I'll say him. What would you say is your all-time favorite video game? One specific game, or a bunch of different ones if you can't think of one. Now, I feel like I might be able to think of one, but it is a little bit weird. Ratchet & Clank: A Crack in Time is just a really good game, which is funny considering how much it got rushed. Persona 5 Royal specifically, I suppose, really climbed the rankings. I originally played that game and couldn't get past, like, the first month, but then I played Royal and somehow I was able to breeze through the entire thing like 3 times. Yeah, I'm sure there are other games I'm not thinking of. There's also, like, Neopets: The Darkest Fairy, which I'm pretty fond of, but no one knows what that is, and it's not a good game. It's just fine, probably at best. Still fun, though. Oh, and I missed this part. And what inspired you to be so cool and awesome? My mom. Yeah, I think that's the safe answer. Also, Riz Grestar, as mentioned before. Favorite video game console and favorite game in general, I answered that one before, but as far as console, I'm a PlayStation guy. I could either say the PlayStation 2 because of how many good games there were on it, or I could say the PlayStation 5 because it is the one I'm getting the most mileage out of, by far. So you take your pick. What favorite video game or movie characters of yours do you want to see appear in Death Battle? Just for the sake of being a little bit original and not just repeating everything, Nero would be a nice character from Devil May Cry. Another movie character I really don't think I can think of. Yor versus Beatrix is kind of a fun one, but I haven't even seen Kill Bill, so... What's your favorite video game or movie matchup you would like to see Death Battle do? Those will be in the top 10! Woohoo! What's your favorite video game character? Specifically, Clank, which I didn't realize for the longest time, but because of how much they've meandered with Ratchet's character, like just gone from one extreme to another, I fell off a little bit on him, so it's Clank. Might be weird, but yeah. Top 5 or top 10 favorite anime or franchises? Oh, that's asking a lot. So this is going to be an answer without much critical thinking. I like Spy Family a lot. One Piece is pretty cool. And then I reveal my dark side by mentioning that I really like rom-coms. So things like Toradora, Nagatoro, and I'm going to think of a 5th one for you. Oh, Mashal. Mashal was a lot of fun. Favorite movie and video games from 2022 or this year so far? Admittedly, haven't done a lot of gaming recently. So, favorite video game is just Lethal Company. Frankly, that was just too much fun not to say that. Favorite movie? Everything Everywhere All at Once, unironically. Not even in the pretentious way, just, well, the people I was watching it with couldn't really understand a lot of what was happening. It was pretty fun overall to me. What was your favorite story of all time? How do you think I would be able to answer that? Toradora. Toradora is pretty good. It is well-rounded in all of its ideas. And hey, if you're one of those guys who really wanted to see an epilogue where they're happily ever after, there's a video game where you get to see what would have happened. She has triplets. How? Physically. Good for her. Good for her. What is a character you absolutely despise? Can be from any work of fiction. I want to know who and why you dislike them. The only characters I could really answer for this are characters that are meant to be disliked. Like, I don't know, Ren from Comey. She's just annoying, pretty much just evil, and a stalker. So her, Ren from Comey Can't Communicate. She's literally just yandere trope. Not a fan. What's your thoughts on pineapple on pizza? It's good. I like Hawaiian. Thoughts on tacos? Listen, if a sub that's cut like this counts as a sandwich, then a taco is a sandwich. Get over it. What's the worst Christmas/birthday present you've ever received? I mean, if you want the generic answer, it would be socks. Half the time they don't fit. Do you really think I'm gonna wear these? Whoever gave me these? I forget who gave me these. But I do have a funny story where there was one time that I was expecting something like toys, and then I was opening the last present, it was this big box, and then it was just clothes. But guess what? That's not the end of the story, because that was the exact reaction my mom was looking for, because she hid the toys under the clothes. Master plan. Master play. Because it got me mad, but then happy immediately after. She knew exactly what she was doing. Is it best for characters to be out of character in order for the fight itself, or the death to actually make sense? It really depends super hard. I know that the big example people choose to use is Aang versus Ed, because Avatar State had no reason to need to kill Ed. That ending definitely could have been done better, but there are other examples of arguably out-of-character interactions that I don't mind. So, is it best? It depends. There are a lot of creative ways to keep characters in character, like, for instance, the Doctor, how he never actively attacks Rick at any point during the entire animation. It all comes down to specifics, so I can't say. What's your favorite counterattack in Death Battle? RoboCop shooting bullets into each of the barrels of Terminator's minigun. That's still a really cool scene, even to this day. My question, if you were hired by Death Battle, which part of the job would you do? Probably editing or animation, realistically. I do a lot of both, although I technically don't work with sprites or rigs very much specifically. It's definitely something I could work on. Storyboard animation is more up my alley. What would you say is the weirdest matchup you like? Okay, hear me out. It's not even my favorite for Nero at the moment, but Nero versus Delsin is I don't know, it just kind of makes sense in the back of my head for whatever reason. You can't say it wouldn't be at least kind of fun. Has there ever been a death battle that got you interested in certain series? If so, which one and why? There have been a couple, like, I don't think a lot of us Death Battle community members knew Berserk prior to the Death Battle, but instead I'm going to tell you a story because this is actually my favorite instance. So, Boba Fett vs. Samus Aran 2, remastered, whatever. During the credits sequence, they played a song, but it got copyright claimed, so they had to mute the entire portion of the video. It's really, really off-putting nowadays. But that pissed me off enough that I decided to search, like, okay, where was this song even from? And then I found the song, Shine, by Jeff Williams, and sung by Casey Lee Williams. And yeah, in my head, I was just really annoyed at this series, like, why would you do that? It was such a nice tribute to a nice guy. Lo and behold, eventually, when we get around to the reveal of Yang Xiaolong in Death Battle, I was like, why do I recognize that character? So then I looked her up, found out she was from the same series. Then I watched the entire series before that Death Battle came out. That is probably the funniest case of Death Battle getting me into a series that I could possibly give. What was your most wanted matchup that became an official Death Battle episode? Ratchet and Clank vs. Jak and Daxter, as mentioned before. But beyond that, probably Cole vs. Alex. Favorite Death Battle combatants you'll be happy to see on Death Battle. I'm not sure if I should take this as characters that have been on or will be on. If it's have been on, then happy to see on Death Battle? Probably Discord, weirdly. He's just one that is interesting to see analyzed in that certain perspective. And as far as have yet to be, someone like Sly Cooper. Sly is just a really fun one. Who's your favorite character that wouldn't really work on Death Battle? As I mentioned, I like a lot of rom-com anime and things like that, so most of the characters that are in my favorite characters list, believe it or not, wouldn't really work on Death Battle. Like, Hayase Nagatoro, for example. Listen, I know she's powerful by human standards. She knows judo. She's very good at judo. Do I want to see her fight someone to the death? No. No. My question, what's your most wanted individual series for Death Battle? And is there any series or characters you wish or wanted to see on Death Battle? Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't feel like giving a basic answer like, oh, I want Robot Boy on the show, because that's one of my most wanted matchups. I don't want to do something like that, so I don't know, maybe like Hell of a Boss, Has Been Hotel, something like that? That's a little bit more broad. Are there any matchups from web media not originating from Rooster Teeth you'd like to see? The aforementioned Hell of a Boss, Has Been Hotel. And I was saving it for this question, but Homestuck would actually be pretty interesting to see analyzed as well. Out of all characters to be featured on Death Battle, who is the most deserving of a return, and who should they fight? Frankly, there are a lot of answers that I could give here. Most of them originating from Season 1. Like, I think that Luke had a pretty lackluster first appearance, personally. He could fight someone like Paul Atreides from Dune. That's probably my pick, because Shadow has returned enough times already, so even though I have a preferred for him, oh well. Do you care about a matchup's fairness or nah? Yes, but it's obviously one factor of many. It's not like an unfair matchup is automatically just a no from me. Fairness is a factor, to some extent. What are your overall thoughts on spite matchups / episodes? I think people get really confused as far as what those are. Like, I think it's very rare for there to be actual spite matchups. Spite matchups are things where you're just using it to belittle another character. That's not the same thing as just, oh, this winner's obvious and I don't necessarily care for their opponent. Alex Mercer versus the Scarlet King. Everyone knows who wins that. There's no merit to that fight. And if you are also just in it to watch Alex die, that's when it's a spite matchup. Goku versus Naruto isn't a spite matchup just because Goku stomps Naruto into the ground. There are connections you can make between them. But yeah, that's about that. If you could make a Death Battle episode, what would it be and why? Making my own Death Battle episode. There are quite a few options. I feel like I could manage something like Robot Boy versus Jenny. Underdog versus Crypto, I actually have an entire fight scripted out, so I guess I would go with that one. I literally have an entire script and comic of that I also haven't posted publicly. I'm a very anxious person. You guys need to ask me for these things. Maybe then I'll post them. What's your submission on the Champions Ballot, both years? I actually didn't, believe it or not. I did not submit my own matchup to either ballot, even though I had the ability on the second one. As far as what I supported, you can obviously just scroll back in my channel to see that. What's your favorite thing to do when you're not watching Death Battle? Watch shows with my mom, honestly. I draw a good bit too, but it's been a while since I've drawn something perfectly for leisure. Favorite versus series besides Death Battle? You know, if I could be totally honest, I don't know if I have one. One Minute Melee is fun to just mindlessly enjoy. Smash Bracket, for all the flack they get, I respect the way they do things. Just needed a little bit more consistency. Unfortunate what happened there. Also, I had a reaction to another Versus series, but I just looked back through my video log, and it got blocked because of some of the music they used in it, so whoops! Any other hobbies besides YouTube? No. Help. But now, seriously? Drawing? Just in general. How are you doing right now? I am booked solid. That's probably my biggest issue, personally, that you guys might get clued in on from time to time. I have a problem of stacking project on top of 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 project. And see, I timed it that way because that's actually the amount of projects that I have at this moment. So, that's fun. I would love for you guys to bear with me. I would also love to interact with you more. Streams, let's plays, things like that. How does it feel to get to 4,000 subscribers? Pretty mundane, if I'm gonna be honest. How will it feel when you get to 10,000 subscribers? That is a big milestone, so that one will probably feel way cooler. I just wanted to make a Q&A, if I'm being honest. What's your number one wanted death battle out of all the other death battles you want? That is something for a top 10 video. So on that note, there is also a handy dandy little teaser coming up. So ultimately, thank you guys again. It was incredible to get this far. And I actually even have a question for you guys. Now that I've unlocked it, would you guys be open to things like channel memberships, giving you guys behind the scenes updates, like keeping you up to date on exactly what I'm up to, giving you special icons to use? Would you guys actually be open to channel memberships of that kind to support me in what I do, while also allowing me to give you at least something in return? I don't want it to feel like I'm locking content away from everyone else, so I'm not sure precisely what I might offer, but behind the scenes, speed drawings of thumbnails, things like that definitely would be easy things to do. But yeah, let me know how you feel about that in the comments, but I will see you in the next video.